Hey everybody, this is another edition of Side Hustle Saturday Hustle Talks, and I'm your girl Lisa. And today we're going to get into the world of fragrance, branding, and culture. My guest today is none other than Mr. Glenn Davis. He is the powerhouse behind Black Owned Fragrance Week, which puts Black perfumers on the map. And it's a movement to give them more visibility and amplify their voices. He is also the influencer, Mr. Cologne 76, who help fragrance lovers get the real deal on scents. So we're going to talk about scent, we're going to talk about strategy, and you know what else we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about the hustle. So let's get into it. Hi, Glenn. Thank you for being on Side Hustle Saturday Hustle Talks. I know you are a busy man. I know you just came off of Black Owned Fragrance Week, which was phenomenal, and we're gonna get into that. But I want to, when I met you, it was funny. The story was funny. I'm gonna get into it real quick. I was just scrolling, minding my business one day, and I saw that you did a post for influencers for Black Owned Fragrance Week. And I was just getting back, started my podcast, and I'm like, oh, what could this could be something. Let me reach out. And I reached out to you, and it just it just started from there. When I heard your story, I just had to have you on the podcast for you to share your journey and how you got started. Talk to me about your story, how you got started, and the inception of Black Owned Fragrance Week. I know that's a lot to unpack, but let's talk about how you got started to be an influencer of Mr. Cologne 76.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for having me. And just to touch on what you just said, when I saw what you were doing, my first thought was I would love to be on her podcast and I would love to have her be part of Black Owned Fragrance Week. And I think now we're realizing the second half of that wish. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm
Um,
glad to have you.
yes, indeed. So my fragrance journey started when I was a kid. I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, and my father always wore fragrances. That was one of the things that he was known for in his circles. And as a kid, you knew when dad had gotten ready for work, or you knew when he was back home because the smell uh, came with him.
Mhm.
And I was about 8 or 9 years old one day, and we gave one of our neighbors a ride. And when they got into our car, they commented on how my dad smelled, and he dropped them off. And he turned to me and he said, "Might not always look good, but I'll always smell good." And he didn't know it at the time, but it really resonated with me. And
Mhm.
I started wearing his fragrances. I started sneaking into his room and wearing his fragrances. So my obsession with smelling good started at a very young age.
Mhm. And so you got the influence from your father. So why did you get on Instagram? Because when I first met you, now he's being modest right now because he's got a backdrop. And if he didn't have that backdrop, you probably would see a whole wall of fragrances. So, how did you get involved in that?
So fast forward to when I was 17, we moved to the United States. We were living in New York. I
Hmm.
got a job, and my first paycheck, I went and I bought a fragrance,
Hmm.
and I started every so often I would buy a new bottle. So I had like 4 or 5 fragrances, and I ended up enlisting in the Navy, and I had a little bit more means, and I
Hmm.
started buying more fragrances, and I would have generally about 30 fragrances at a time. That was just my thing. That was the norm, but
Right.
still very closeted because I would keep my fragrances hidden. They weren't like on display all the time.
Yeah.
So when I got out of the Navy, I discovered the world of niche perfume. This is 2007, and I'm hearing of all these fragrances, and I thought I knew a lot about perfume.
Hmm.
So I went down a rabbit hole and I started discovering this world of niche perfume. I got really intrigued with artistry in perfume.
Yeah.
There was a shift in me from just smelling good to really appreciating the story behind the fragrance.
Mhm.
So I started sharing that on social media, just kind of randomly connecting with people. And one of my friends encouraged me to connect with my audience. She literally said to me, Glenn, you've got a lot of Instagram followers, but you're not connecting to your audience.
Mm.
So I had about maybe 1,500 followers. And I didn't know what that meant because, my regular profession, I'm a registered nurse.
Yeah.
So social media is not something that I'm familiar with. This is 2000. This is now we're in 2016.
Right.
So I I'm the kind of person if I have to do something, I'm gonna learn how to do it. So I
Mhm.
went online, I started digging, I came across Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a thought leader on social media entrepreneurship. And
Mhm.
at the time, he had two books. I read one of his books. And as I'm reading this book, I'm like, this is me.
Mhm.
This is me. I have this passion for fragrances. And if I could somehow connect with a bigger audience and hopefully one day, be able to monetize that, I was like, this could be me. So I became inspired. And I went to town. It's now 2017. Instagram, in terms of the fragrance community, was really just being formed for all intents
Yeah.
purposes.
Yeah.
There was a shift from YouTube to Instagram. And I was one of those people that kind of, really shaped what was happening on Instagram. It's totally different today. But back in 2017, in terms of the main people on this platform, I was one of those people, and I've been so blessed to maintain a presence, maintain a connection with my audience.
Mhm. So now you're on Instagram and you're sharing your love for fragrance. You found your niche and you're building your community. How did it evolve into Black owned Fragrance Week?
So I had a very unfortunate incident happen. Several of people that I was really close with, several other Black content creators,
Mhm.
they kind of pulled back from me.
Mm.
And when I inquired as to what happened, what I was told was they didn't think that I was using my platform enough to support and amplify Black-owned perfumery. Now, to put things in context, the way I operated my platform was I never reached out to brands. I worked with whichever brands reached out to me. And
Right.
it was the same to any brand.
Mhm.
So I had worked with some Black owned brands, but I wasn't reaching out and I wasn't like taking my platform to amplify. I wasn't forward facing. I wasn't reaching out to these brands. So
Mhm.
it hurt me because one, um, they were doing the same thing that they were complaining that I wasn't doing. And two, if we had a conversation about it, we could have did something about it,
Right.
right? Come to me, say, hey, Glenn, how about this?
Mhm.
So that happened. I reached out to a couple of the Black brands that I had collaborated with, and I say, hey, this happened, and I want to know how we can improve this. That's how I handle things.
Mhm.
So the direction I got was, well, why don't you have a conversation with every Black-owned fragrance brand there is? So I made a list and I reached out. I had a one-on-one conversation like you and I are having right now,
Yeah.
and I said, hey, what can we do? Why?
Mhm.
And I was also curious why they hadn't approached me. So what came back to me was, we didn't think our fragrances were good enough for you. We see what you wear. We weren't sure how to approach you. We thought you were too big of an influencer.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was really taken aback. So I
Mhm.
said, okay, I have some direction. I know what I need to do. So it was just a matter of how do I get started? Well, one February, I had been watching social media and the trends, and I
Mhm.
noticed ever so often there would be a theme for a week. It would be rose or vanilla or
Yeah.
bergamot. And I
Yeah.
said, what if I did a Black owned fragrance week?
Yeah.
So about 5 years ago, on a February, I just got on my page and I said, hey, it's Black owned fragrance week. I'm encouraging you to use this hashtag and to share your Black owned brands. Well, I
Yeah.
got kind of laughed at. A few people messaged me, they couldn't understand why we needed to talk about race and perfume. And there was some
Of
negativity and
course.
some misunderstandings, but I stood firm. And the
Mhm.
next year I came back and I did it. And that year, I interviewed a couple of brands, and I work full time as a nurse, so I'm doing all this by myself. I'm having these interviews, and I was like, "This is really nice, but it's a lot of work." So the next,
Mhm.
I reached.
This segment of Hustle Talks is brought to you by Studio 951. Need a game changing marketing strategy? At Studio 951, we help businesses stand out with expert branding, social media management, content creation, web design, and video editing. From crafting eye catching visuals to driving engagement, we bring your brand to life online and beyond. Ready to grow? Let's build something amazing together. Visit studio 951.com today.
I reached out to more influencers and I said, "Hey, can you guys join me on this? Will you interview a couple of brands?" And then four official years later, because the first
Yeah.
year was just my platform, 4 years
Right.
later, Black owned Fragrance Week just ended 2 weeks ago. We had 30 branded interviews. You did one of them. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We had over 40 brands on our website offering discounts. We had
Mhm.
over 45 brands enrolled altogether. We just couldn't support them all, and we had to have a cutoff date for when we can get things onto the website.
Right.
Um, Brands are talking about Black owned Fragrance Week. Content creators started creating user generated content without being asked.
Yeah.
It's a real thing, it's a household name.
It
And
is a real thing. It's a real thing. I mean, and that community is tight. And what I felt when I was part of it, it was, you can feel the support for one another.
Mhm.
You have a lot of people that do a lot of events that are online. And with this one, it was just like, wow, almost as if we were side by side in person. You could feel the love and the support of each other supporting, oh, she did this. I'm going to support her. I'm going to tag or I'm going to share it. And I felt that. So, I mean, kudos to you for building such an amazing platform and community. And I know that's important for any entrepreneur, for any brand in building a community because that's what's going to keep you afloat. When you have your community, those are your supporters. Um, can you talk to me about the importance of like building a community and how you keep that community motivated?
Absolutely. Before I answer that question, I do want to acknowledge there were some people that helped bring this thing to life.
Okay.
Um, Victoria of the Scented Web,
Mhm.
L from Black Perfumers, Sadasia Nairi. These ladies helped me bring this thing to life. So, although it seemed really flawless on the outside, there was a lot of work that happened on the back end. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge. I'm really, really big on acknowledging the people that make things happen. So, shout out
Right.
to those ladies. And your question was like the need for community.
Yeah.
Here's a crazy statistic. We, as in the African American community,
Hmm.
are one of the biggest spenders in the fragrance and cosmetic space.
Really?
Yes, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's more than half. Okay,
Wow.
and what happens is we are not so good at supporting, black owned brands, right?
Yeah.
So the problem with that is as a black owned brand, it's really hard to gain traction and to really, blossom in the fragrance space.
Yeah.
So my goal when I started this was to really amplify, to normalize, to make black owned brands feel like, look, I can approach these content creators no matter how big they are, because this is a
Hmm.
safe space. This
Yeah.
is a safe space. That was my goal. The way I, I think the community sort of feeds on itself. We've gotten bigger and bigger as the years go by.
Hmm.
All right. So I only had to lean into my connections and my relationships in the community with a little bit of gentle guidance, like, hey,
Hmm.
why don't you add this handle to this caption? Or why
Yeah.
don't you tag? I'm still doing that as we speak, right? Because one of the things I noticed while doing this was there's a big knowledge gap with best practices on social media.
Yeah.
on and the way we as a community do our content. Like for example, a brand will reshare something about Black owned fragrance week, but they won't put the handle on it. So they don't maximize the opportunity for discovery.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we are intentional about our behavior on the platform, the growth is a whole lot better. So that's where that community piece happens. It's the educating, it's the
Mhm.
encouragement, it's the humility.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
humility to accept, a different and perhaps a better way to do something. And that's what really made this community what it is.
Yeah. I want to touch on something that you talked about, and it's about the stigma of a black owned brand. Um I think sometimes people have a stigma that if it's black owned, it's not good. I just did a post from Lanny Smith about um people think that because it's black owned, I have to, if it's a European brand, oh, we're all in. It's better than. But if it's a black owned brand, it's less than. How do you think we can break out of that stigma? Because when I interviewed Terry Johnson and Oni, their fragrances, I told him, I said, y'all could be down here at the department like Macy's and Nordstrom's. They were incredible. The marketing and the packaging could compete with any other fragrance brand that is out there. How do you think we can kind of like get over that stigma that just because it's black owned, it's not good?
That's a great question. I have so many thoughts going through my head. For starters, the fragrance industry has been shrouded in secrecy. There's a lot of gatekeeping.
Mm, mm,
Access access to materials at
mhm,
reasonable prices is often a challenge for Black owned fragrances.
mhm.
And to be honest, other indie perfumers in other races. That's just how it is. The indie perfumers, the smaller brands, usually struggle with access.
Yeah,
So as a result, sometimes we do things that aren't up to par, but that is not unique to Black owned brands. That
yeah,
is with a lot of brands. When people come to market, sometimes they're not polished, right?
right.
So I know personally, years ago, I interviewed a brand and he sent me some samples, and literally the samples were like Sharpie pen written on the vials.
Shut
And
up.
I was on Instagram
What?
Live. Yeah, I was on an Instagram Live, and I remember messaging him and saying, "Hey, a sample cannot leave your lab unless it's properly labeled.
Right.
Period."
Hmm.
Okay. So all that to say is the to fix the problem, we have to start bigger than the product. We have to start with supply chain. We have to start with investors. We have to start with
Hmm.
access to retailers. When
Yeah.
those things a little bit easier, then we can really elevate our product.
Yeah.
Access to information, access to
Hmm.
schools, access to shout out to Black Fragrance Alliance. They just started a scholarship to support Black perfumers. Okay, so
Hmm.
when we improve the access to the materials and the knowledge, we can elevate our products and and,
Hmm.
and, and reduce the disparity between the perception and what the fragrances really are. So that's
Hmm.
part of it. Because I mean, look at this fragrance. All right,
I mean, it's remarkable. It's just,
right. This is
yeah,
on par with everything else. And I know it's cutting out because of the
yeah.
background, but those fragrances are on par with everything else out there in the niche perfume space, the luxury
Mm-hmm.
space. So that's part of the problem. The second part of the problem is brands. I'm talking about Black-owned brands.
Hmm.
They also need to work on their relationships with content creators. I'm a
Mm.
content creator and I don't do content creation as my bread and butter. I have a regular job. But there are
Right.
people who that's what they do for a living. So do not expect because a content creator is Black that they are simply going to promote your brand for free. they also have a business to operate.
Right.
Okay. So please, black owned brands, like, do not minimize what these content creators are doing. Don't approach them to review a sample. I think it's really an insult when that happens. Recognize the work that's
Mm-hmm.
gone into building the community, recognize the number of years they have spent building their reputation in this space, and approach them with the same way you would approach a store to carry
Mm-hmm.
your fragrances.
A
I
hundred
think
percent.
when we get those alignments, I think some of this misconception around black perfume brands are going to go away.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the education. I think if we give some sort of platform or a launching brand, it could be as simple as how to market your product, how to package your product. Here are some ways to, here are some resources. Because you're right. I think there's a lot of gatekeeping in our community. Like I had to figure it out. So you need to figure it out too. And right now, more than ever, we need to stop the gatekeeping. We need to stop it and start. I mean, there's room. I always say there's room at the table for everybody. And I think when we start walking in that approach, you'll see a lot more success and a lot more people um, coming to the table more prepared. I feel like
Yes, absolutely.
so. You got this platform. It's going, Black owned Fragrance Week is 5 years strong. How do you think you will evolve Black owned Fragrance Week? I think it needs to be in person next time, or need to have a hybrid, in person and virtual. But I think it's such a phenomenal event, and I feel like it's going to keep growing. Where do you see it going?
Well, right when I was having those conversations with the black owned brands, but this is when I had that incident happened in 2019ish, and I was having these conversations. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things I kept telling these brands was, I want to see an expo featuring, black, and not just black owned brands, but black and people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So um, we're having that next year, June of 2026 in Dallas, Texas. We're
Mm-hmm.
having an in-person event. Um, it's going to happen right around Juneteenth in Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Yes. We're still going to keep doing Black Owned Fragrance Week in the space that it is right now in
Mhm.
February because of the alignments with um, Black History Month.
Yeah.
Uh, and, February is still a very crazy time with the weather to try to have an in-person event. We don't
Yeah.
want to do an event in February just because of the uncertainty with the weather.
Mhm.
So June of 2026, in-person event. We're gonna, I'm really developing that right now as we speak.
Mhm.
Black-owned fragrance week is going to keep evolving. It's going to keep getting more refined. Every year I've been able to take the lessons learned from the previous years. So, like for
Mhm.
example, this year I realized that, for one, waiting until like the last hour to be like, all right, we're doing Black on Fragrance Week, and wasn't very advantageous. We really suffered. We really suffered as a result of that. So
Yeah.
the goal is to really start working on Black on Fragrance Week 2026 now, so
Yeah.
that people could be signing up and we could really pace ourselves because the number of man hours that I put into this year was insane.
Yeah.
Um,
You need to grow your
although,
team.
yeah, well, we need a bigger team. We need to start planning.
Yeah.
And part of that is growth. I didn't know how this thing was going to go. Last year in 2024, I was still like asking people, hey, would you do an interview? And this
Mhm.
year, I put out a call. I had 70 content creators sign up. Well, of the 70, not everyone felt comfortable doing an Instagram live. And of those that did feel comfortable, most maybe had availability in the evening hours. So there was a challenge of being able to host more interviews earlier in the day. We did
Right.
the best we could. We had about 4 to 5 interviews per day, 7 days.
Yeah.
Actually, Yeah, 7 days, 7 whole days. So I was pretty happy with the number of interviews that we did. I would love to do more. Perhaps have them pre-recorded so that
That's a good idea. So then you
yeah,
just drop them.
so
Mm-hmm.
we can control the production value. We still want to do certain things live. I feel there's an inherent value in doing things live, but
Mm-hmm.
just to give us a little bit more leg, perhaps doing these things pre-recorded maybe a better help. Setting clearer definition with the brands of our expectations, because
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, not every brand really harnessed the philosophy, the velocity, and the momentum that Black owned fragrance week created. And what happens is
Mm-hmm.
Black owned fragrance week created a windstorm, right? And
Yeah,
as a brand, you have to now put up your sail to capture that wind.
absolutely.
And if you don't do that, you're not going to fully benefit. And also, as a brand, you can also contribute to that windstorm. I really want to develop this sense of like, hey, we're in this together. My friend Hidden Gems, he always says, "We are all we got." You know,
Mm-hmm.
if we all contribute to this movement, it is going to be unstoppable. And that is the culture that I want
Mm-hmm.
to instill in Black owned fragrance.
If you're ready to take your business to the next level, our sponsor, CompleteOne LLC, has got you covered. Need a game-changing website, eye-catching logo, sleek business cards, or even expert video editing? They do it all, because your success is their priority. At CompleteOne LLC, they don't just create, they elevate, helping you think strategically and bring your vision to life. Your brand deserves the best, and they're here to make it happen. So why wait? Let's build something great together. Visit CompleteOne LLC today, where your vision gets completed.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think the one thing that I feel like we as entrepreneurs need to do more of is network and collaborate. And what I learned from you is the power of collaboration. I don't think I would have ever, if I wouldn't have been scrolling, I don't think I would have ever thought about, let me do a collaboration and see how that would benefit me. And how it benefited me is I met you, I met an amazing community. And then it also helped me grow as a content creator and as an entrepreneur. So, can you talk about like what the power of collaboration does for an entrepreneur or even for yourself?
Um, Collaboration gives us an opportunity to learn from each other.
Mm,
Okay. It gives us an opportunity to meet other people that we would not have possibly met.
right.
It gives us an opportunity to grow by the sheer exchange of audiences. Um, I'm a really firm believer in amplifying people. I'm a firm believer in using the platform to amplify all involved. If you look at the Black Owned Fragrance Week page, I'm
Hmm.
really big about recognizing the people that have done the work, the people that have stepped forward to create
Yeah.
content. One
Hmm.
of the areas that I've struggled in as one of the areas I've struggled in as a Black content creator is just that lack of acknowledgement and visibility. No one else is doing it for us.
Right.
And I wanted to create that space. I wanted to
Hmm.
give people their accolades. And that is kind of the culture that I want to create with Black Owned Fragrance Week. And that's what I want people to walk away from when they come to my event in Dallas in June of 2026. I want
Hmm.
people to leave feeling, invigorated, energized,
Yeah.
connected. I want people to feel like I'm going to leave there and I'm going to find other Black owned brands to support, other Black owned businesses to support, because this is how I felt the whole time I was in this event. That
Yeah.
is what I'm going to create.
Yeah. When we were done with it, I was like, who else can I collaborate with? This was cool. I was so motivated. I was like, I learned more about myself during that time. And I was like, I felt inspired and it lit another fire of more things that I wanted to do for my brand. Um, how have you grown from this whole experience? How has you starting out as just doing fragrances online to now the Black owned fragrance week. How has that helped you with your growth as an entrepreneur and as a content creator?
The truth is, I wish I had grown more in the entrepreneurial space. I have never approached the fragrance thing as a this is going to pay the bills. My only rules for my fragrance thing was Mr. Cologne needs to pay for Mr. Cologne things. I can't take I can't take the house money and do Mr. Cologne 7 6 things, right?
Right.
So it's not it barely does that, but I'm okay with it because I'm not taking the house money. As long as I'm not taking the house money, I'm good, right?
Yeah.
As far as I wish I wish I had a little bit more entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, for as long as I've been creating content, for as long as I've been doing the fragrance thing, for as long as I've helped brands get started, there are brands out there that I helped get started, right? I wish I had monetized that, but I haven't, and
Yeah.
it's okay.
Hmm.
It's okay. It will come, right? That's what my wife tells me. It will come. As far as how I've grown, being a leader in the space. Being a leader in the space means that you're going to get criticized, hated on, but you're also going to get supported.
Right.
And you have to focus on the people that support you and
Hmm.
continue building those relationships so that you can lean into those relationships. So it's made me more resilient. It's made me more it's made me more guarded in some regards because you know as a leader sometimes you can't share everything that you want to share
Yeah.
because you are held to a different standard.
Hmm.
And early in my journey I remember sharing something with someone that I thought was a friend in the fragrance community only to have a situation happen and hear that that was information was being used to essentially gaslight me.
Wow.
So yes, it happens unfortunately. So I just have to be more mindful. Like I can't run my mouth like everybody else. You know what I mean? So, you're in a position of leadership and you have to maintain that.
Yeah.
So not everyone not everyone is able to carry that load, even as a content creator, to stay relevant in the space. There are tons of content creators who have just stopped creating content, life has happened, but I've been able to keep that balance. Not always
Mhm.
perfectly, but I've been able to keep that balance. So I started in 2017 making content.
Mhm.
So that's 8 years in the space.
Mhm.
I feel I'm doing okay.
What are some of the things you think you might want to do like different? What like to expand? You think you might come out with a fragrance? Do you think you might, I don't know, teach? I think you got a thing here. I think you could possibly teach how to run and launch a product or run and launch an online event. I think you got some arms to Black owned Fragrance Week that you could explore. What do you feel like you think you might want to take the brand and do something different?
Um, I haven't really shared with anyone before except my wife. So I'll
Okay, well
share.
then keep it there.
I'll, I'll,
You can keep
no,
it there.
I'll share one of the things. Um, I was inspired by the story of Jet Magazine. Right?
Mhm,
He saw a need for representation amongst people of color in the fashion space,
mhm,
and he took his own money and he started the Jet Magazine um, to to fill that need, right? And I feel I've started down that pathway with Black Owned Fragrance Week, but um, you know, as an organization, and Black Owned Fragrance Week is only a part of the brand that I'm building. But
mhm,
yes, if the brand had a fragrance, if we were able to have a olfactory competition annually, and we were able to, you know, have one of the brands we partner with create this fragrance. So, this is an opportunity for them to put their name on a bigger platform to elevate their name as a perfumer. Like
mhm.
that's just one of the things that I think about, that when I think of fragrance in the future.
So, if you could sum up your journey in one word, of all the things that you've been through, what would that word be?
Extraordinary.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Why extraordinary?
Multiple reasons. My dad always told me that anything that you put your foot forward to do, you
Mhm.
need to be extraordinary. Um, that's one of the things, he used to tell us whenever my dad was a nurse as well. He would say, when I walk into that hospital or that department, I want them to know that, I'm the best nurse walking in here. That's what he used to tell us.
Yeah.
So he instilled that approach, on life.
Mhm.
I like smelling extraordinary, and I like
Mhm.
inspiring others to smell extraordinary.
Mhm.
And I feel like what I've done, I feel like what I've used my platform to do is extraordinary. It wasn't done. It hasn't been done. And it's inspiring, it's connecting, it's building a community. And I could not have been more proud of just where things are going. I tell people now, like Black owned Fragrance Week and Mr. Cologne are two separate things. Okay. Although I started, they're two completely separate things. But
Mhm.
I'm so, so happy um, with that. If I never did anything else in the fragrance community, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know. So
I love that word, extraordinary. All right. I know you a busy man. And again, thank you so much for being on my podcast. But tell the people how they can get in contact with you. How can we reach out to you, your social media handles, your website?
certainly. So my personal brand is Mr. Cologne 76. So I'm on Instagram at Mr. MrCologne 76. I'm on YouTube, although I don't
You
have
need
as
to be
much
on
content.
YouTube. You
Yeah.
need to be on YouTube.
Black Owned Fragrance Week is at Black Owned Fragrance Week on Instagram. We're also on TikTok. We're going to have a YouTube page. We are, what was the other thing? We have a website, www.blackownedfragranceweek.com.
Mhm.
And currently, so if you hadn't heard of Black Owned Fragrance Week, it's a 1 week celebration amplification of Black owned fragrance brands. It was started by me 4 years ago, but we're headed to a direction where um, it's going to be more active in the in betweens. We're building that out. So
Yeah.
expect to find on there announcements about discounts, specials, seasonal specials.
Mhm.
I plan to have a month of Black owned Fragrance Week where we're doing meetup in different cities.
Oh, that would be
So
great.
exactly, because I was told a long time ago that people connect with people,
Mhm.
and you have to get out there and you have to meet people and you have to be able to shake hands and give people hugs. Like imagine where are you located? Where are you located?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Right. Imagine we did an event there. What do you think you and I meeting would look like?
Oh, it would be I mean, I know where I would have it. It would be really a cool, hip boho place where people can come outside possibly or in a loft space. I mean, I have it in my brain already.
Yeah. So that is what I want to be able to do is liaise with key people in various cities to
Mm,
put on these events. It gives, because I'm very strategic with the things I do, right? I
yeah.
want to amplify you. So like, this is a Black owned Fragrance Week meetup, but it was sponsored by Side Hustle
I have to
Saturday.
say,
So
yeah.
you see what I'm saying? I'm all about building people up and giving people that visibility.
We need to do that. I'm gonna write that down. We need to do that. I would love for you to come to Columbus and we do something. That's one of the
Absolutely.
I mean, that would be fantastic. I if I was in the fragrance space, how can people reach out to you if they wanted to be a collaborator or just say, "Hey, I have this fragrance. Can I talk to you for a minute?" Not that I'm trying to get you into the mentor space,
Yeah.
or how can people get in contact with you?
Just send me a DM. Just send me a
Okay.
DM. I think, and I'm just going to put this out there. I think first impressions first impressions say a lot. I get a lot of brands that don't even introduce themselves. They're just like, "Hey, can I send you a sample?"
Yeah.
The problem that's wrong with that whole equation is you haven't introduced yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and if you spend the time to look at what I've been doing and what I have done, um, asking to send a sample is fine, but asking me to review a sample and give you feedback, I feel like there's a little bit of a mismatch. You
Yeah.
know, again, respect the work that people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Time, time has a cost factor,
Yeah.
and it's not always about money. There are ways in which brands and content creators can exchange without ever spending a dime. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to create some content about your fragrance, well, are you going to put it on your website, on your Instagram? Are you going to give me exposure on your platform? Let's find out how we can collaborate. Right.
Correct.
So just reach out, just send me a DM, but
Mm-hmm.
just be respectful, not just of me, of any content creator you approach.
Yeah.
Spend some time. Don't do the copy and paste message. We can tell. Spend some time. Follow the content creator. Like, learn
Yeah,
a little
for
bit about.
sure. On all
Yeah,
platforms. Follow them,
yeah,
support them, comment as a warm touch, and then reach out.
exactly. And it just kind of drives me nuts when people, like, again, don't introduce themselves. Just send me a copy and paste. They're not even following. It's just like, come on, we got to do
Mm-hmm.
better.
Mm-hmm. Well, Glenn, thank you so much for being on Side Hustle Saturday Hustle Talks. I really appreciate your knowledge, your and just working with you. You know, I
Thank you so
I
much.
learned so much from you, and it helped me grow. I mean, I've been in the business for a while, and you never should stop learning or growing. And I want to give you your flowers and say I appreciate you and thank you for bringing me into the Black owned fragrance week community because I love it. I loved it. I've grown. I'm doing more content now. I can't keep out the camera. I'm like, oh yeah, this is content. And I'm putting so it's helped me break out of my shell a little bit. So thank you for that. And I hope we can work together in the future. And
Absolutely.
much blessings and success to Black owned Fragrance Week. I'm gonna be there with bells on wherever you at.
Thank you, Lisa. I am so happy to hear how this experience has impacted your journey, and this is what it's about for me.
This is
So,
what it's all about. Yeah, you
yeah,
touch one, you touch many. So yeah, I bought a new tripod. That's a whole
look
other
at you.
story. I'm all on YouTube, like, yeah, hey. So it really helped me grow when it came to being in front of the camera and content. So thank you. Thank you again. But
My pleasure.
everybody, that's all for this episode for Side Hustle Saturday Hustle Talks. And I will talk to you soon.